hello. Welcome.
Hello, hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. My name is Mason Seitz. I'm currently an investment analyst in the innovation and venture capital space, and I'm a board member at Event Future Global. Excited to have you here.
Awesome, yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, you.
There is somebody that isn't listed in your presenting group that it's Lemogang Teke.
Yeah, she's in our group, yeah.
Oh,
She's
okay. Okay. If you're listening, Lemogang, please accept the promotion to panelist so that you can join in.
Fantastic. Well, while they're joining, if you guys could go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us what organization you are with, and then get ready to. We'll probably wait for your partner to join and do their introduction, but then you guys can get started with your presentation.
all right, awesome. Um, just give me a quick moment if I can just share the title slide. So yeah, firstly, thank you everyone for joining. I'm Aarush, and I'm one of the ambassadors for the Quality Education Hub of the Global Collab Network. We are a virtual do thank, and consisting of teens around the world that focus on specializing in hubs for particular sustainable development goals, whether that be education, plastics, equality, so on and so forth. It's really a way for teens to lead projects that can help mitigate the SDGs in their local communities and also create international impact. And we will be presenting a cascade and sort of a collection of alternative education um, methods that have been used in the world today, whether those are new innovations, whether those are new methods, or new concepts that have been applied beyond the conventional classroom and that have worked to promote quality education. Um, and then, sort of more on the organization. So, obviously, I'm Aarush. Sonia and I are both the ambassadors of our quality education hub. Although she's ill, so she won't be able to come present today. Alongside that, we have Lemogang from South Africa and Oumar, who I'll allow to introduce themselves. Oumar, if you mind introducing yourself.
Yeah. I'm Umar. I'm one of the members of the Education Hub. Um, I'm from Colorado, and yeah.
Awesome, nice. And then Lemogang should be joining shortly. Essentially, we empower teens to be change makers for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Alongside just our weekly hub meetings and our projects so far, we've also hosted an annual video challenge that calls on teens globally to essentially talk about and use a video medium to talk about a particular sustainable development goal. And we also send a yearly teen delegation to the high level political forum of the United Nations in New York. I happened to go last year, and we also presented and connected with so many wonderful change makers. If you're interested in joining, the QR code is written there. And without further ado, we will get into the presentation. Omar, you can take it away.
All right. Can we go to next slide?
Yeah, sure. It should be.
It's frozen on my end.
Here, do you see it?
I see the title slide. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wait, hold on. There?
Okay. Okay. All right. Next. Okay. So basically, this research started by we realized that there's a major issue happening in some parts of the world where early childhood education is like a big issue because like not all kids have like good early learning. Like some programs are too expensive and families can't afford them. There are language barriers, and then lack of early education can lead to bigger learning gaps later in school. This matters because studies have shown that the early years, like elementary school years, are some of the most important years in a child's development. Because the brain development. in the early years, it affects how a kid learns later on. And studies have shown that a strong early childhood education allows the kid to do better in schools. So you may be wondering, how do we support these kids? Well, we have to create a good learning environment. Let the kids learn through the way that they learn best. So like through play, try to help them be independent because if we just help them through everything, they won't learn them by themselves. And we need to support their emotions and make programs that are easy for families to afford and access and stuff like that. So that's what our presentation will be going over today.
Awesome, thank you. And now I will be delving into our first method that we've explored and researched extensively, which was inspired by leading scientist Sugata Mitra's School in the Cloud, or the Future of Emergent Learning. It's also sometimes abbreviated as a self-organized learning environment, or a SOL. Now, essentially, to understand this, it's important to understand the educational gap that we face in our world today. As of now, with countries that have reported data, close to 85% have reported teacher shortages, massive deficits in teachers not being allocated to a larger population of students. This is within the 2022 to 2023 year, although it's important to note that these numbers may have escalated, especially with rising populations. Additionally, when we talk about the teacher attrition rate, which is the rate at which teachers actively leave the workforce during their tenure, that has seen a 4.38% increase from 2015 to 2022 globally. This is almost double the anticipated rate and double the past rate as well. And lastly, close to 44 million primary and secondary school teachers are required by 2030 to meet these SDG 4 targets. So while in 2015 the United Nations has set clear targets for the Sustainable Development Goals and the targets for teacher population, clearly there's a big deficit in what is expected and what the result is. Now, clearly, we haven't always struggled with large scale education. Think of the old empires of the Victorian era, the British Empire, for example, one of the largest by land mass in history. The way they were able to manage these empires in such large masses was due to a highly bureaucratic, structured form of teaching, what we call organized teaching. These are teaching standards and educational systems that have a clear hierarchy with principal educator going down to individual teachers with individual subjects. They were often very rigid with curriculum, very rigid with assignments, and heavily reliant on resources. In doing so, these were able to create networks of highly skilled and talented students that could easily assimilate into a workforce and conduct the empire's and or any particular region's affairs. Now, it's important to note that we're not in the age of empires anymore, and thus it's important to understand the shortcomings of such a rigid educational system. Here is
Hey,
where we should,
Rush,
yeah.
quickly. It's frozen on my side and it's frozen on some of the panelist sides too.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Is it there now?
Okay, yeah, it's there now.
Okay, sorry. I think it's just a presenter view.
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay. Moving on. So this is a problem that Sugata Mitra, a computer scientist, a renowned one in India, tried to solve through his hole in the wall. He noticed that next to his high-rise building in Bombay, India, there was a slum, and essentially he wondered why what the people on the other side of the slum did wrong to not be able to afford the same educational opportunities as those in the high-rise buildings and in the more developed areas of the town. Now, essentially, what he went and did was he simply put a computer there. The languages are foreign, and the information was unknown to these students. And he left the computer there and he observed. And within a few weeks, they had figured out how to use the keyboard and mouse. Within a few more weeks, they figured out how the processing system worked. And within a month, they came back to him demanding a faster processor and a better graphics card. Thus, it's important to note that for students, especially in such a developing age, learning happens instinctively. And in his view, it wasn't about making learning happen like the empires of old. It's about letting learning happen. And the hole in the wall experiment was just the start. He went back to his room and he decided to create a network of sorts. And this is where we get the cloud model of the self-organized learning environment. First, this would be through a completely virtual medium using internet and computers and online resources, sometimes even apps such as Zoom, Skype, and so on and so forth. Essentially, what he did was regions were assigned a primary facilitator that would purely focus on facilitating uh, volunteers throughout the world. They would set up the big questions and basic guidelines for thinking, but wouldn't have a set curriculum. And then on top of that, he formulated what's called the Granny Cloud. These were actually uh, based on the fact that he went to close to 300 British grandmothers, and these were remote mentors that have retired in teaching or different fields and would love to have helped kids that were distant and remote and could not get to a near classroom. Using virtual mediums, this Granny Cloud, headed by the primary facilitator, were able to reach students in remote places, even in the Himalayas, even in the desert regions of India, and uh, even spreading to other parts of South Asia. And these models have been applied globally as well. And essentially, now they reach students in a collaborative and a self learning environment. The key impact of such an educational system is very clear. First, it mitigates global teacher shortages. By a virtual medium and employing the full population of the world or a certain country, it allows for teachers to promote education without the pains and the toils of being in a physical classroom. It also diversifies and broadens creative scopes. It doesn't force students to be in a rigid model. And on top of that, it supplements, not replaces, existing educational structures. Students can easily sustain their regular K through 12 education while also seeking additional help through a cloud model. And thus, the importance of such an environment is paramount, and we would love to see it adopted in the world today.
All right. So another problem that we also saw was standardization and some standardization. So some students felt like school was going too slow or too fast, right? So this led to the solution of Montessori schools, which allows students to basically go at a pace they need. So basically allows them to build independence and things like that. So and it's more hands-on, so like the play aspect, because it's not just lecture, take notes, because some students don't learn well like that. And allows students to build more independence as a whole. Next slide. So, research has shown that in Montessori schools, there is a higher education in the classroom environment. And that higher quality classroom environment leads to higher quality education, which then leads to higher engagement in the students because, then the students really want to be there because they're learning in ways that, well, helps them actually learn and they're not just bored. And that leads them to have a more positive perception of school. And then that more positive perception of school then leads to a higher classroom environment, which allows this to come full circle. So the Montessori schools helps solve the problem of standardization and also makes whatchamacallit, school more not feasible, but like more like engagement for students. Next one.
Now, Sonia couldn't be here today, so I'll present her slide for Escuela Nueva, which essentially was a model employed in rural Colombia. Here, students would have to drop out for weeks to months in special circumstances, and it did leave them behind in conventional classrooms where they're not able to access their in person schools. Essentially, how the format worked was students were received guidebooks that would act as textbooks, and they would provide supplementary activities. Students would work and discuss with each other, and teachers would guide and take exams whenever they feel ready. Uh, and the specific impact was actually very interesting. UNESCO in the 1990s found that because of such an educational system, Colombia was one of the only countries in South America that actually provided a rural education rivaling city educations.
Remind
It
you
just
just have
goes to
one
show.
minute left.
Yeah, sorry, was there?
I
Uh,
just remind you of 1 minute.
oh, okay. Sorry about that. Um, is Lemogang here? Uh, did she accept?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. Um, so essentially, uh, yeah, due to time constraints, probably won't be able to cover everything. Lemahong had her sort of presentation on microschoolings, essentially showing that while large scale structures in classrooms were an efficient model in the past, now we're transitioning more and more towards um, a microschool and small scale classrooms. And that really fosters smaller learning groups, fosters shared attention, and the ideas that so many students have that are often suppressed in a large environment now suddenly are expressed and in a more creative medium. So thank you for listening. Obviously, some time constraints, we could have gone into further detail, but we're really glad that you tuned in with us. Here's a feedback form if you're interested in scanning with any questions or any future clarifications. Thank you so much,
Thank
and we
you.
hope you enjoyed.
Well, thank you so much for presenting. Really interesting findings and presentation. Great to see kind of an alternative to the traditional classroom model and in a way to leverage technology to increase the learning around the world. Like you said, due to time constraints, we're not going to be able to do any sort of Q&A, but thank you so much for joining in, and thanks to everyone at home who tuned in to listen. Um, Fantastic.